Dear fine viewers of Access Blockbusters, you may remember that I posted a video a while ago saying, and I quote from the title, "I am not excited for the Snyder Cut." In that video, I actually didn't talk a lot about the quality of what I thought the Snyder Cut was going to be. I talked a little bit about it and thought, oh yeah, well, I didn't really like Man of Steel, I really didn't like Batman v Superman, so I don't really think I'm gonna like the Snyder Cut, but there are other reasons. Please go watch the video in its entirety if you want to hear my thoughts on that. Because bottom line, that video actually isn't really about the quality of what I thought the Snyder Cut was going to be. It's actually more about precedent, so again, if you want to hear those thoughts, please watch that video in its entirety, I might add. But, one of the things that I touched on in that video is that, yeah, I didn't like Man of Steel. I didn't like Batman v Superman. I thought the Justice League trailers for the Snyder Cut looked okay. Wasn't that excited about it. Well, yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong. Now, this review is going to go non-spoiler and then spoiler. I will clearly delineate when the spoiler section will begin. So for those of you who haven't seen the Snyder Cut and are looking for an opinion, like yours perhaps, who aren't that excited about the Snyder Cut, well, I will clearly tell you guys when I will be starting to talk about the spoilers. So for now, non-spoilers. Here we go. Up front, I want to make this very clear though. This video is not an apology. I am not apologizing for not being excited for the Snyder Cut because I stand by that video. I stand by the fact that I was not excited for this movie before it came out. And that's fine. If any of you are Snyder, let's say, loyalists, people who have been clinging on to Zack Snyder's every word and saying this movie is basically the next Citizen Kane, well, that's fine. You're entitled to that opinion as long as we are entitled to ours, which we are, because, again, expectations, art is subjective, right? It's based on our own personal opinion. So this video is not me apologizing for my previous thoughts on my expectations about the Snyder Cut. Frankly, I did not think this movie was going to be very good. Again, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, not a big fan. Not a big fan of Zack Snyder's directing style, which is fine, by the way. Just the idea of a 4-hour cut of Justice League didn't really raise my excitement all that much. But look, if you guys know me, and if you guys have been watching my videos, then you know that I am the type of person who, yes, has expectations, because guess what? Everybody has expectations for everything, whether or not we want to admit it, but I'm one of those people who just whenever they're about to watch a movie, a show, whatever, puts those expectations at the door and goes in with as blank of a slate as I possibly can. I'll talk about this in a later video. I'll probably be making a separate video essay about this, but case in point, I talk about this all the time. Toy Story 4, I wanted to hate the film. I thought there is just no good reason for this to exist, but I left my expectations at the door. I love that film. So, blank slate, fresh expectations, went into the Snyder Cut. And yeah, I was wrong. But just based on my expectations, I was wrong. Because my expectations were that this was going to be a bloated, just massively bloated version of the 2017 version. I didn't really have any rationale to back that up. I understand that it was new footage from Snyder, all that sort of stuff. From the trailers, it sort of seemed that way to me. And, okay, to be quite honest, it sort of is, but I think I'm okay with that because, okay, and again, without going into any spoilers, this is a 4-hour long film, whatever you want to call this, I don't know. Yeah, we'll call it a film, a director's cut. It is long. And basically Zack Snyder put in every single ounce of film that he had from his time shooting Justice League, as well as reshoots, new VFX shots, all of that. So maybe just to start out with some negatives before we get into all the positives, because there are a lot of positives actually from me. There are, yes, sequences that I would have definitely cut out. There are absolutely scenes, sequences, series of shots that I would have absolutely cut out. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure if the intent on Zack Snyder's part was literally just to use every single bit of footage that he had. If so, I guess he never would have thought to cut these things. But if you're just going off of a film, a 4-hour film, yes, but a film, then absolutely. There are scenes that I would have just gone, nope, cut, gone, because they added nothing to the movie. Like, I get it, 4 hours and all that sort of stuff, but I could see a world where the Snyder Cut was released and it was about 3 hours and basically put into theaters as it was, 3 hours of a film. Avengers Endgame was 3 hours, Infinity War 2.5 hours, BVS Ultimate Edition 3 hours, so I can see a world where about an hour of footage was cut And it's not like I'm saying that there was this entire 1 hour sequence that could have been cut from the movie. I'm just saying, like, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, a couple seconds here, that definitely could have added up to, I don't know, an hour, 45 minutes. So anyways, there's that. And, you know, I'm not entirely sure if this is a negative or a positive. I'm still trying to think about that because I just recently finished watching the Snyder Cut, but I was actually genuinely surprised at how many scenes from the 2017 version that I thought were definitely 1,000% Whedon's were actually Zack Snyder. I won't say what, obviously, non-spoiler, but there are a lot, actually quite a number of scenes from the Snyder Cut that I was like, oh, that was actually Zack Snyder and not Joss Whedon. A lot of it actually had to do with the comedy. There were some scenes where I went, oh, that's definitely a Whedon joke, and that's definitely something that Whedon wrote in the last second, but no, it was Zack Snyder. Some of the time it worked to the film's advantage, some of the times it didn't, because some of the times those things that carried over from the 2017 version, I was like, oh yeah, I really like that scene, and I'm glad that they kept it. Other times I was like, oh, I didn't like that joke at all, and they kept it, so. And, okay, talking about negatives, let's talk about Steppenwolf. So, you might be a little bit surprised to see Steppenwolf in the negative section, because a lot of people have been saying Steppenwolf is so much better in Zack Snyder's Justice League. He is just so much improved, and actually, you might be surprised to hear me say that I agree with that. But that doesn't mean that something about Steppenwolf doesn't belong in the negatives for me, at least, and that is his design. Is it better than the 2017 version? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. Of course. Is it good? To me, no. It still isn't. It just still looks like a video game character to me. Maybe this is just me. Maybe something's wrong with my eyeballs that everyone else seems to really like him and really like the way he looks in this film. Fine. Just to me, every time I look at the character, I go, yeah, no, that's a really, really good rendering of a video game character. Just straight up. And it's probably the face. It's mostly the face. Something about it looks too plasticky. I'm not sure. And I'm going to say the same thing about Darkseid. So if you consider that a spoiler, well, he was in the trailers, so I'm not going to consider that a spoiler. He is in the film. To what capacity, I'm not going to say. Obviously, he was in the trailers. Anyways, yeah, Darkseid, not a huge fan of the design. Now, I have seen a lot of people trying to defend this, saying, oh, but he's not supposed to look realistic like Thanos. I'm not comparing him to Thanos. I'm just saying, when I look at Darkseid, again, I understand he's not supposed to look humanoid like Thanos does. But he still doesn't look that good to me. He still looks like a plasticky video game character. The last thing I'll say about negatives is just overall the story in general. Look, if you wanted to go into this film expecting an entirely different plot, an entirely different motivations, well, there are entirely different motivations for some characters, but just entirely different characterizations from the 2017 version, you might be a little disappointed because while my fears that this was going to be just a bloated version of the 2017 version were not true, it still, at its core, is kind of essentially the same film. Kind of. Like, it has the same skeleton of that 2017 version, because that 2017 version, again, Joss Whedon reshot a lot of it, but was built around what Zack Snyder had originally planned and basically had shot. But that's about it for the negatives for me. I mean, there is some, things here and there. Every film has it. Like, there are some really, really bad lines in this film. I think at the end, I'll talk about this in the spoilers, but there is a line at the end that I went, oh, no. That's not good. There are some things that carried over from the 2017 version I didn't really like. Talk about it more in the spoilers. But overall, yes, it is 4 hours long. There are things that I would have cut. The pacing at times is a little slow, but I kind of went into it understanding that, look, I'm not really watching a normal 2.5 hour film that I can just watch in one sitting. I did take a break. I watched parts 1 and 2 and then finished the rest of it. But still, it felt breezy, it felt light, and for that I was happy. So let's talk about the positives. There are actually a lot that I want to talk about in the non-spoiler section. So first of all, the characters. The characters are a lot better in this version. You can tell that Whedon sort of flimsiness that was there in the 2017 version is gone. Batman, in particular, is very much a more realized character, and I really do like that about this version. Superman is more or less the same, although there is a lot more done to flesh out his character in other ways, which I really liked. Wonder Woman, I will say, I think benefits the least. I think she's okay. She's fine. And I think Aquaman as well is good. I think Jason Momoa has some better moments to shine that make a little bit more sense in the context of the film. But Cyborg and Flash, I really do think benefit. I know everybody's been saying this about Cyborg and also about Flash. I think those two characters really did benefit from Zack Snyder's original vision. I do. There's just a lot about those characters that are added, especially everybody's been saying it, so I will not dwell on it too much, but Cyborg, his backstory, great. The Flash, pretty good. Actually, there's a lot that's done at the end that I think is really interesting that will indeed carry over into the rest of the DCEU. The action and the visuals, for the most part, are also very, very good. Some of the action scenes actually are, I won't say breathtaking, or I won't say first class or anything, but they are very, very good and very fun to watch. Now, speaking of visuals, though, well, first of all, again, I was very impressed that the fact that most of the visuals looked very polished, except for Steppenwolf's face, but that's fine. But visually speaking as well, there's another little quirk, I guess. So I watched the film on an iPad, and the reason that I did was because the 4:3 aspect ratio actually filled up the entire screen of my iPad. Now, if you guys have a phone or an iPad, you know that there's usually black borders at the top or the bottom, as well as on a computer. But because Zack Snyder wanted to use a 4:3 aspect ratio, it actually filled up my entire screen, unlike most movies, films, YouTube videos, all that sort of stuff. On a computer, it looks kind of dumb because it's just a square in the middle of the screen. And I know artistic integrity, and I know it would have looked better in theaters, so I decided to watch it on the iPad, and actually, I found that it benefited the experience. So for those of you who have an iPad, I would actually recommend over a computer, because on a computer it looks like a cube. So... And for better or for worse, this film tonally is very consistent. From beginning to end, hour 1 to hour 4, this film is extremely, extremely consistent. And I do really appreciate that. Now, and look, I am somebody who actually does like the 2017 Justice League. For those of you out there who think, no, you cannot like both versions, they are exclusive to one another, I'm sorry, but I'm living proof that, no, you can enjoy both. I do enjoy both. I think, look, the 2017 version of Justice League is flimsy, it is very surface level, it is kind of mind-numbingly enjoyable to me, and that's fine. You know what? That's fine. Again, many people were expecting the Avengers level quality from Justice League, and they didn't get it, and they were upset, and that's totally fine, and, everything like that. But I enjoyed 2017's Justice League, and I also enjoy this film for different reasons. I think it is an improvement in many different ways on the 2017 version, but I also think that at its core, it is very, very similar, and that's fine because I like both. But going back to the tonal consistency, I think that plays really well for this film because from beginning to end, you are watching the same director do the same things, and it works. So overall, yes, I really did enjoy Zack Snyder's Justice League. I know that maybe some of you may be thinking, oh, you just had low expectations and that's why you enjoyed it. Again, I really do my best to put my expectations at the door before I go in, and I really did have a good time with this film. There are things that I didn't like. Some of the writing is bad. I didn't talk about the music. There are some specific things about the music that I really didn't like. We'll talk more about that in spoilers. And there is some pacing issues. It's 4 hours long. I would have cut a lot of it out, honestly. And by a lot, I mean just in raw numbers, like 30, 40 minutes. But in the grand scheme of 4 hours, probably not a lot. I don't think the story is mind-blowing or anything, but I do think that it would have been the first entry in a really good trilogy. Like, if they were to make Justice League 2 or 3, which they won't, I don't think they will, but, anything can happen. But I think this would have been a very, very solid introduction to a trilogy. And that's what I think is unique about this, is that it sets itself up to be a very good Justice League 1, Justice League 2, Justice League 3. Unlike, for example, the Avengers, which Avengers 1, Avengers 2, Avengers 3, Avengers 4, 3 and 4 obviously are very much linked, but 1, 2, and 3, not so much because there is stuff in between. I think Zack Snyder was really setting himself up just to make Justice League a good trilogy, and I do like that. I like all the characters: Batman, Cyborg, Flash, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. Alfred is great. Steppenwolf, look, his design, not great. His motivation's better, still not amazing. And I think if this is Zack Snyder's vision for what he wanted Justice League to be, I think it absolutely would have been a lot more successful. Now again, go watch my video about why I wasn't excited about the Snyder Cut, because while I did advocate for the fact that I did want the Snyder Cut to be released, I also said it might be setting a dangerous precedent, so there's all that sort of stuff. But as a film, as the Snyder Cut itself, I really did like it. I am not going to rate it because it's 4 hours long. I don't think in good conscience I can rate it as a film because it just doesn't feel like it warrants that. But I can recommend this to people who watch Batman v Superman at least and want to just watch what Justice League could have been. It's 4 hours long, but I think that a lot of people will enjoy it. Now, on to spoilers. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we are going to be spoiling heavy things from Justice League, Zack Snyder's cut. Honestly, there isn't a ton because, it's sort of the same film from 2017, but a little bit more. So you have been warned. Here we go. Okay, first of all, I was alluding to a line that I really just cringed at the end. Look, Martian Manhunter, cool. You know, there are definitely characters that are ridiculous in the comic books, and you can make very, very cool. Ant-Man, for example, Martian Manhunter. But when the actor who played him went up to Bruce Wayne and said, "Oh, by the way, some people call me Martian Manhunter," I just about... what in the world? That doesn't fly anymore, guys. You can't just say, "Oh, by the way, I am Martian Manhunter." Okay, alright, calm down, Zack Snyder. And I will say, in general, the epilogue actually surprisingly did not work for me. I get it was a nightmare. It felt like Zack Snyder was being a little bit overindulgent. You know, like, I think right before the nightmare sequence, the film should have ended. Because, yes, I get it setting up, you know, Justice League 2 and Justice League 3 and what would have been. I also think that sequence was a little bit overindulgent. And yes, I heard that Jared Leto and Ben Affleck couldn't film together. I think I could tell. Maybe it's just because I knew beforehand, but I really do think I could tell. The camera was just trying to frame them so close up and all that sort of stuff. Anyways, that's beside the point. And again, I was really interested to hear that, oh yeah, so Superman might be a villain going forward, Justice League 2 and 3, if they were to happen. I think that there are some really interesting directions that they could have gone, and that definitely would have excited me, obviously much more than what happened at the end of 2017's Justice League. But I digress. In terms of music, one of the things that kind of bothered me, and this bothers me in every film, I complain about it for Marvel, I complain about it for Endgame, so I will complain about it for the Snyder Cut, is random pop music. I get it. Zack Snyder has a very specific tone and a very specific style, but I just am not a fan of random pop music appearing in the middle of scenes. You have an orchestral score, which, by the way, Junkie XL, I think, did a good job for this film. But then he just inserts a bunch of random pop songs. I don't know, that's just a personal pet peeve. Another thing relating to music is the Wonder Woman, like, her actual theme I really like. I've always liked since 2017. But they've added this sort of female voice wailing in front of all of her action scenes, and at first I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, you know, a tribal chant or whatever. By the time it got to the ending and you still heard this female voice wailing, I was like, oh man, this is getting old really quickly. Going back to the epilogue though, I think Jared Leto's Joker is much better. I think he still is able to keep some of the Jared Leto isms from the Suicide Squad version so you know it's him, but I also think it's much better. Not perfect, but a lot better. Deathstroke being there, okay, that felt very fan servicey. Martian Manhunter being in there, like that random scene with Lois Lane, I was like, oh, that's cool. But also, what just happened? And honestly, there isn't a lot to spoil because, again, this is structurally sort of the same film. You start out with Bruce Wayne assembling the team. Now, granted, one thing that I really did like is that in Zack Snyder's original vision and in the Snyder Cut, it's sort of rearranged. Like, you see Bruce Wayne going to Aquaman very early on, and you sort of have different reasons for the members of the Justice League showing up. That's what I really did like, is that there are clear and obvious reasons for why characters do what they do in this film. Again, Cyborg showing up in the last film, in the 2017 version, I was like, okay. But like I mentioned before, there are some scenes that I was a little bit surprised that it's the exact same from the 2017 version. For example, in terms of comedy, the I Bought the Bank scene, I was like, that has to be Whedonism, right? Nope, that's actually Zack Snyder. The entire Barry being recruited by Bruce Wayne scene in the beginning, or part 2, or I can't even remember, but part 2 maybe of the film, that's basically identical. The Superman fighting the Justice League, one of my favorite scenes from the 2017 version, exactly the same. That's one of the instances where I was like, oh yeah, that's good. I like that they kept that. But I think what this film, this Snyder Cut, really benefits from is just exploring why characters do what they do. Because again, I maintain, I enjoy the 2017 version of Justice League because the bare bones are there. Is the writing a little bit Whedon-y? Yes, it is. But the bare bones are there. What this 4-hour cut was able to do is obviously take out the Whedon writing, but also flesh out everything that you wanted to know about the characters. Cyborg's backstory is tragic, it is emotional, I love it. Even having some scenes with Flash, I really love that. Now, Aquaman, on the other hand, I love Willem Dafoe and Amber Heard, you know, all that controversy aside, I think she's okay as Mera, but those two in this film were kind of awkwardly put in there, I will say, but, you know, that's whatever. But this film just felt coherent to me, and maybe that's what I really liked about it. From beginning to end, it had a story it wanted to tell. It was, yes, setting up future films, but of course, all films do that. In these franchises anyways, and look, is Steppenwolf going to be the best villain in comic book movie history? No. Does the film's story just transcend the genre and is one of the most groundbreaking stories of any comic book? No, it isn't. Is this film enjoyable? Absolutely. Does this film have good characters? Absolutely. Does this film know where it wants to go? Absolutely. So at the end of the day, look, I have been advocating that I do want Zack Snyder to release his Snyder Cut. He did. My worry was with the precedent that it might set, not the fact that Zack Snyder himself was releasing the Justice League. I'm glad he got to do it, and I'm glad I got to watch it. Will I see this ever again? I don't know, but if ever I wanted to see Justice League again, I would probably spend 4 hours watching this version instead of 2 hours watching the other one. Not to say I didn't like the other one. I saw it as recently as 2 months ago in preparation for the Snyder Cut releasing, just so I had a fresh opinion in my mind, and I still, 2021, did like it. But I am glad that I got to see the Snyder Cut, and I'm very happy that Zack Snyder got to make it. Now, again, with the politics of DC and what's going on over there, and Ray Fisher and all this sort of stuff, it is kind of a bummer that there is no continuity, because after 2017, the DCEU just kind of splintered off, and you have Wonder Woman 2, but then you had Aquaman, then you had Shazam, which is something completely different, you had Birds of Prey, and now the Suicide Squad, Suicide Squad 2. It's kind of all over the place. Henry Cavill might be rebooted. I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say with all that is that I missed the tonal consistency, because even with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, you knew that this was all the same universe. You knew that this was all the same characters. I didn't like those films at all. Well, not at all. I just didn't like those films. But I respected the consistency that they had, and I respect the consistency that this Justice League would have had if it were released in theaters and led on to 2 and 3, and it would have been a fun trilogy, I will admit. So, again, glad to have seen the Snyder Cut. And those were my thoughts on Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yes, I was wrong. I was wrong to be a lot nervous about this film, because I had a great time watching the Snyder Cut. Again, this video is not an apology. I am not apologizing for not being excited. I don't think I should have to be, but there it is. So, what do you guys think of the Snyder Cut? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to check out some more videos, check out the videos on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.